For this part of the assignment in ATTR A10, we need to talk about the TRIPP, or the Translating Research into Injury Prevention Practice article written by Caroline Finch, and kind of explain the different components and talk a little bit about what we've seen before and how that can translate into our own clinical practice. So the TRIPP model was based off of the Van Mechelen model, which is a 4-stage injury prevention. But what was really missing there was the need for driving the research into implementation once it's already been shown its work. So it kind of left off all the reasoning for, yeah, this shows it works, but are we really being able to implement it into clinical practices? So there are 6 stages to the TRIPP model. The first one's injury surveillance, and one of the biggest issues within that is terminology. So making sure that clinicians are all saying various injuries are the same. That way you can able to accurately get a count in the injury surveillance. The second one is establishing anecdotal and mechanisms of injury. And we kind of see some issues back with the Mioise's multifactorial model. We need more focus on this area because etiology cannot always say what the true mechanism of injury was. And being able to state the differences of, even though we kind of eliminate and account for different issues to happen, can we truly plan for everything to happen within research? The third stage is the development of preventative measures, and this is where the actual research is done on into the different types of prevention. The fourth one is the ideal conditions of in scientific evaluation, or the efficacy of it, and this is where we go back to the Mioise of where we need these ideal conditions. So we know based off last week's work that no matter how much we can plan for injuries and how much we can prevent for specific injuries, that there still can be things that happen that we cannot plan or be able to account for. We also have different ways of testing, so this can happen between the lab or clinical practice, and I believe more of this needs to be translated to happen into clinical practice. The issue is some specialized equipment. So if you're using all of this specialized equipment in lab research, is that available for clinicians, and will they be able to translate that into their own clinical practice if they see that this works? Another issue we have with trying to see if prevention programs work are dropout rates. And the last one is negative findings. A lot of researchers don't want to show their negative findings within the research, but we actually know that this is valuable information and more researchers should be doing that. The fifth step is the translation to clinical practice. And so our biggest issue is we need our participants to know that the risks can happen, and we need to understand the motivators or barriers to this. But if they do not understand that they are truly at risk, they're not going to perceive a need for injury prevention. And the last one is that implication into the real world. Does the lab study actually work? And I think in order to know that, we need to know, did it work when it was first tried? And then do our patients or participants understand the need for it? The one thing within any injury prevention is the need to easily adapt. So if something calls for a very specific piece of equipment, is there a way to make this work for, say, a high school athletic trainer who doesn't have the resources that they would at a collegiate or professional setting? So using TRIPP within my own clinical practice, I have never actually used the acronym TRIPP because I didn't know about it till this research, but I do think I've done a lot of prevention. It helps that I was enrolled in the prevention class last spring. That's kind of out of order, but I implemented prevention on kind of a large scale model. I went through some of my medical documentation from last year and did a little bit of my own injury surveillance and figured out the largest amount of injuries with women's soccer and then with track and field, and then gave each coaches a generalized injury prevention plan for their student athletes to do over the summer. So it was a little different with me moving jobs. I won't be able actually to follow through and see if there is a reduction in injuries based off of that, and it was only a really small group. But I think that athletic trainers can use this by taking various studies that they find and seeing where the issues are, making sure their patients are motivated, and that most often they know that there is a risk for injury and that this is the whole reason why they are doing